There's a fun cartoon that I remember seeing, which I think sums up my life quite well. It's got a sign which is pointing to your plans and goals for your life. And that's pointing in one direction, and immediately in front of the person enthusiastically running towards the goals and plans for their life is a pit called the internet, which they're about to fall into. And honestly, I'm as guilty as the next person, possibly more guilty, of getting a little bit distracted from the things I should be doing and wasting a bunch of time binge watching that or going down some internet rabbit hole. Somebody who is, not only experienced in this, but can lecture us on the pitfalls of it. Tash McGill, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, kia ora. I wasn't sure where you were going with setting up my expertise in the arts of distraction. I was a little uncertain exactly where we'd be landing. But look, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful that we live in a world where there are so many things that can grasp our attention, regardless of whether or not they should be grasping our attention?
Yeah.
The world is a colourful place full of rabbit trails, conspiracies.
There's always seems to be something more interesting and more stimulating, more dopamine inducing than the things that I should be doing that I actually get paid for or will make me a better person. Honestly, there's too much of it out there, and I'm a sucker for it. There is a lot of power in distraction. In fact, I think it's probably the biggest growth industry globally at the moment.
Well, and look, I think you'd be 100% accurate in that regard. It's a combination of things that are going on. Not only is there more content, and don't we hate the word content so much? Hate the word content. You and I live and breathe and trade in content all day, every day. But it's a terrible word because there's just there's content and then there's quality. However, we live in a world that is full of content, and a lot of that content is broken down into tiny little pieces and spat at us through a variety of channels, just in the hopes of grabbing our attention long enough to sucker us in, whether it's for a sales message, whether it's for a conspiracy theory, or simply because they know that if we've got our eyes on that screen, or we've got our eyes on that device, or we're listening to that particular podcast or that particular opinion, such as the opining you and I are doing right now, that they've got us for whatever moment that they have us, and we are in fact at times vulnerable in those moments that our attention has been grabbed by something. And that is actually the power of distraction, in the not so good sense of the word. And there are particular seasons and particular times where it's important to understand exactly how distraction gets a hold on us, and exactly what we need to be careful of, so that we don't lose sight of the main prize. Now, you've used a bunch of examples around, the things that we ought to be getting done, the perhaps the list of jobs that need to be done on the fridge. I'm, casually looking at mine right now. Perhaps it's the deadlines that we have in front of us. But oftentimes it's also simply a matter of where should our attention be? Where is it better for our attention? Where do we need to be seeing things clearly instead of seeing things through a lens of whatever interesting bauble has just danced across our screen?
One of the distractions of this, Tash, is that it tends to rewire our priorities. We've got a to-do list, and suddenly the latest Netflix series somehow ends up on our to-do list above some other things as well. It takes the things that we should do and inserts itself in there and sometimes at a higher ranking. And look, we've all got lots of stuff to do, but sometimes it's even difficult to recognize the difference between, oh no, this is valid and takes me in the direction I want my life to go, and no, this is a distraction from that. Sometimes it's even difficult to spot the difference between the two.
Yeah, so I think that there are a few key things to pay attention to when you're looking at whether or not distraction is working for you or against you. The first thing is, what does it do to your energy? Right? So if something comes along and it's demanding that your energy goes in a different direction from where you already previously decided you wanted your energy to go, and the output of that energy isn't going to match or align with where your goals are, that's usually a good sign that distraction is not working for you. The second thing, so energy being the first thing, the second thing being clarity. clarity of sight. Do you see things more clearly as a result of putting your energy into that thing that's now just walked across your table? Now, sometimes in the process of research, and I spend a lot of my time researching. I spend a lot of my time researching, oftentimes discovering new ideas, discovering new pieces of content, discovering new thoughts that actually can be helpful because it helps to give me clarity about the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
When there is no clarity, it's a rabbit hole. It's a path down to more information that doesn't help you clarify your decision-making process, or it doesn't help you land on a conclusion, right? So there is a case to be made for where distraction actually is helping lead you to a new idea that's going to help you do the thing better.
Yeah.
Or it's going to muddy the waters and take away your clarity and your ability to make decisions.
Do you think some people are more susceptible to this than others? Are there, or is that just all of us now in the modern world? We're all highly distractible.
Well, are we in election season or are we not?
Lots of baubles, yeah. No.
Lots of baubles, lots of distraction. And I would say, honestly, actually, election seasons are really, really good examples of where the power of distraction comes in, because sometimes distraction is, in fact, and as I said, there's energy and then there's clarity. And then the third piece of it is decision making.
Okay.
What kind of decisions are you making? Are your decisions more thoughtful? Are they more informed? Are they more powerful? We have all sorts of decisions that we make, but the danger is that we often can spend a lot of our time in a day, in a week, or in a month making decisions that are not that powerful, right? We might decide something, but it doesn't actually make a difference to the way that we go about our daily practice or the types of activity that we engage in. But there are decisions that are powerful decisions that we make that actually change the trajectory of our life, or they help us to form a new habit that takes us into a better direction. And so in that decision making that we have, that is one of the clear places where we can see whether or not we are being distracted, or whether or not we are actually helping ourselves move forward. Sometimes the distractions that we gather actually are an important piece of putting puzzle pieces together, right? Yeah. Now, if you sat in front of a jigsaw puzzle, you're probably too busy, got too many other interesting things.
Jigsaw puzzles are my jam. This is a great way to get distracted. Usually over summer when I don't have so many work obligations, but yeah, I've lost days on a good jigsaw puzzle.
We know the strategy, right? We know the jigsaw puzzle strategy. You start from the outside edges. Once you get the edges in place, then you break it down into your groups of different colors and textures, and the pieces that you can see obviously go together. And then you work systematically, don't you, Andrew? You work systematically, I'm sure, section by section. Completing the quadrant, starting with the stuff that's simplest through to the more complex. And I bet you never, ever, ever get distracted by that one piece that you just have to find out and figure out where it goes before you can move on to the next thing.
Although to be fair, and building a case for positive distraction, sometimes it's a good idea to step away from the jigsaw puzzle to do something totally different, which is possibly equally as pointless, but then come back to it with fresh eyes. And I'm thinking about, rather than just striving our way through our daily to-do list, taking some time, particularly if people are involved in sort of creative type of work or processes, looking at the problem not head on, not staring at that one piece of jigsaw and going, look, I'm going to get this. I'm just stubbornly holding on to the next thing on my list, but putting that to one side, doing something totally different, using a different part of my brain. Surely distractions can be good in this regard.
Well, I think really what you're trying to do is dress up a distraction at that point as a brain refresh.
Yes.
And I think there is a difference.
Okay.
There is a difference. There's always power in letting your brain go and do some subconscious work while you preoccupy yourself with something else. But a distraction is the difference between whether or not, as you look at that collection of puzzle pieces, does the picture become more clear? Does it make progress towards completion? If it's not making progress towards completion, then you're distracted versus actually helping to find or see things in ways that are helping you to
I think
move
I've got a good metaphor for this one. An obvious bad distraction would be to open another 10,000 piece jigsaw puzzle and try and work on that at the same time, on the same table. That's not going to take you towards the goal. Everyone's going to be angry at the end of that process, right?
Exactly. So sometimes a distraction is a great way of allowing your brain to escape, but it needs to be time bound and it needs to not take you away from the end goal. And that's I think a really important component of understanding, exactly how distraction can end up being a problem, particularly in the cluttered landscape that we live in.
Yeah, certainly.
Particularly election season.
Exactly.
And the lolly scramble of distractions.
Hey, focusing on your goals so that you can reward yourself with binge watching some excellent online television. Hey, each to their own. Tash, certainly appreciate your wisdom on this topic. Thanks for joining us.